All right, people, it's only a matter of time before Skynet becomes self-aware. Today, we are talking about AI. Amy, what do you think? Will the robots enslave us all? Should we be worried?
Basically. I was just saw an article too about I wish I would have remembered all the gist before hopping on, but something about how college students for like a year used AI to write their papers and just how like their brains basically were
Atrophy.
turning to mush. That wasn't the scientific term, but like how they just like lost their ability to critically
Mm,
think as they used the tool for like the whole year or something. Kind
yeah.
of wild.
Well, it's very analogous to if you walk around on crutches and you keep one leg off the ground and you use
Mm.
crutches for a full year, all the muscles in that leg are going to shrivel up and atrophy into nothing. And you're going to grow some beefy, like pec minor kind of muscles,
Yeah.
like armpit muscles essentially with the crutch use. But it is a very real risk overusing a crutch, even
Mm-hmm.
though we could be grateful that crutches exist for when we really need
Mm-hmm.
them, right?
Yep.
If you broke a leg, I would not deny you the privilege of using a crutch. But again, it's like anything else that we've talked about, it's possible to take something too far, and there are potential pros and cons with this new budding world of AI.
Yeah, for sure. You know, I think we were talking about before we hopped on. It's not like we're gonna sit on our high horses or something and judge you for using AI because we use AI and we think
Yeah.
it's a valuable tool. It's like everything, I think it just takes nuance with how you're maybe using a tool or how you're thinking about a tool. And this has been a topic I've wanted to cover for a little bit of time because I've seen probably 5 or 6 patients come directly to me with stuff they've like used AI to research. Or they said like, "Oh, I plugged this into AI. This is kind of was spit out. What do you think?" So they'll kind of run things by me. And honestly, it's a good conversation like driver or like
Starter.
it's a
Yeah.
good starting point, and then I can kind of go in and be like, "Oh yeah, like this is really interesting and like maybe useful avenue for us to go down. Like I wouldn't worry about this thing." So like I can sort of pick apart the data a little bit and see what might be relevant for that particular person. Um but yeah,
Well,
I think it's an interesting changing landscape that we're dealing with now where a lot of patients are getting information from AI, whether it's like ChatGPT or like some of these different AI,
mhm.
I don't know, AI companies.
I know there's other ones.
AI? They're
Platforms, I guess you could call them
platforms. Yeah,
platforms.
they're
Yeah.
getting they're getting info from all these platforms, and I just think there might be some strategies that we can talk through of like how to use AI, when to like be a little skeptical, like how to kind of approach AI in your journey.
Yeah. Well, I think that like any other tool, some of it comes down to the quality of the tool and some of it comes down to the the strategy that the user employs, right? And again,
Right.
like you could have a hammer and it could be a really, really good hammer, but if you go smashing windows with that hammer, of course it's going to become a bad tool in the wrong hands or if you
Mm,
use the wrong technique with that tool. But if you use it for its purpose and you kind of like stay in that lane, so to speak, a tool like a hammer could be a really useful tool. And I feel like that's sort of where we're at with this AI conversation, where I said before we hopped on, we would be damn fools to sit here and tell people with a straight face that AI is useless or we shouldn't be using AI. Because A, people have experience with these things now, and they know that that is not true. But also, even if we told them it was useless and they shouldn't use it, nobody's going to listen to us anyway. They're still going to use it. I was joking with Amy before we came on. I was like, even if we tell you social media is bad, you're still going to use social media. I pretty much guarantee it, unless you're like living in East Sheboygan, God knows where, on 50 acres of land, and you're totally disconnected and you're without the internet,
right.
and you live in like a log cabin out in the woods, like then maybe you would stay off social media. But for people listening to this now, like there's not a lot of sense telling you that AI is bad because A, it's not true, and B, you wouldn't listen to us anyway. So it's more useful to have this conversation of like, how could we use this tool appropriately and safely? And how do we, how do we critically think and evaluate the information that we're given so that we're capable of weeding out like the good information from the bad information? And honestly, I think we should be doing this everywhere anyway.
Right.
Like, if you're watching YouTube videos, I hope that you have enough of a bullshit detector that you could tell who's full of crap. Poop pun always intended, by the way. Hold on. My newest pen, my poop emoji pen.
Right.
Poop pun intended, but hopefully you have enough of a radar that you can tell who's full of crap and who knows what they're doing and is genuine and sincere. But I would say the same thing too, like when you're reading blog posts online, when you are talking to human beings, like we've all met somebody in our life who we're like, wow, that person is super fake. Like the words that they're saying sound so good, but something about their delivery or their facial expression is just not sitting well with me. Like I think they're a con artist or they're like not a good person. And even hell, like when I go to professional seminars, these are like people with accolades and degrees, and I will sit there and kind of critically think about what I'm hearing. Just because somebody's up on a stage and they have an advanced degree, I'm not going to take their word for it. And I've seen people with degrees bullshit up on a professional stage in front of hundreds of people. So, rambling point. I hope that we all have the ability to critically think, and I hope we all have a bit of a bullshit radar. But I think it's especially important when we're using social media like YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. And I think it's especially important as we're using AI because you have this platform that's capable of giving you really good stuff, kind of mediocre stuff, and utter complete tosh. And you need to be able to want to figure it out if you're choosing to use this tool.
Yeah, it's interesting you talking about the authenticity of, hearing speakers. And I think you can see that now. It's so interesting. I'll go on like Reddit threads and stuff following different sports teams. And there's been a few times where someone's used AI. Like it's very obvious that they've used AI to write a post about something. And everybody underneath will say like, oh, nice AI or whatever. Like everybody's kind of calling out that this doesn't seem authentic, which is hilarious to me. Like people are now kind of being able to discern sometimes when things have been written by AI. And that's kind of not necessarily in the lane that we're talking about, but just you can kind of, like you said, detect when things don't necessarily add up, or maybe when you need to dig deeper about something that you're being shown in AI.
Well, and I'll throw this out actually. I had not intended to bring this up, but you brought it to the top of mind. As you're Googling, like even if you're sitting here and you're like, I don't use AI, like maybe you're one of the special ones who never uses AI and you're like on a high horse for some reason, just saying this to yourself, like, oh, I'm not going to use this. But you are.
Yeah.
You are. It's just you're not aware of it and you're not really consenting to it. So there are so many blog posts and website posts out there now and Instagram captions and videos, and they are AI. And even more terrifying, there are books, like actual physical books that you can purchase on, I don't want us to get in trouble, so I'll just say large retailers that sell everything, but originally they were only going to sell books, and the name rhymes with Bamazon.
Yeah.
There are AI books, and so this is a real thing, and we need to be aware of it. But I remember I was looking up articles. I was trying to find articles on how to tell the difference between pecan, walnut, and tree of heaven trees. Because they all have compound leaves with many leaflets, and like they can look similar from afar. So I was looking up these different characteristics for my tree identification hobby. And a couple of the articles I pulled up, just something about the grammar and the writing and the formatting and the information, it didn't sit right. And I remember telling my husband, I think a lot of these were AI written articles or blog or website pages. And So I ended up just closing it all out, and I went to my foraging books, like my physical actual books. But on that tangent, she's a TikToker, but I saw her on Instagram. She calls herself Black Forager on Instagram.
Yeah.
But she was talking about how there are AI foraging books that you can purchase on Amazon. And really slick, Nick.
Yes.
But she was saying there are now reported cases of people getting injured because they ate a poisonous plant or a toxic plant based off of the information in these AI foraging books. And it looks legit enough that they really believed that they were getting a reputable, good book, and they didn't realize it was AI slop.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That reminds me of what happened to Sarah Ballantyne. Remember when she was dealing with the Amazon? Did you pay attention to that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And that's
that
another
AI?
whole thing. Yes, I think that was an AI thing too, is they were making like blatant ripoffs of her book, right?
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's a topic none of us want to talk about it, probably, and none of us want to acknowledge that AI will enslave the human race someday. But it's like we kind of have to talk about it at least a bit at this stage of the game because it is so pervasive in our world now.
Yeah.
And even again, like you could be reading posts or looking at posts and reading captions on Instagram. And I know, we're both business owners, so we maybe see a little bit of like business owner, entrepreneur type internet content. And I know I've seen a lot of people saying, hey, you could write all of your Instagram captions with AI now.
Yeah.
Or even like doctor's notes. My husband's rheumatologist just emailed today a notification asking to consent to AI chart note taking. And so it's everywhere now. And we really have to be aware of how this is affecting our lives. And when we use it for personal purposes, which I think we're going to segue into here, like you go to ChatGPT or whatever, and you're typing in questions and having a conversation with the chatbot itself, we need to be careful, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And one thing too, there's a girl on Instagram. Her name is Choose Food Wisely. Have you followed her before?
I don't know. It doesn't ring a bell.
I'm trying to remember what her actual name is, but she did a post recently too that I found really interesting. Basically, she was saying that, a lot of people now are using AI to basically plug a lot of their testing in. So like get a GI map or something, plug the results in, and ChatGPT sort of interprets the results and tells them like supplement stuff to take.
Oh, great.
So like she was basically saying that was happening. And she's been seeing a trend of like people taking their labs and like plugging it into ChatGPT and being like, oh, what do I do? Which again, like maybe could be a starting point. Like if someone did that who I was working with, it's like, oh, let's talk through like what came up and like if there's any basis for it. But she was saying it was really interesting because I think she did it for herself. And some of the supplements that they recommended were very like counterindicated for some of her conditions that she had that weren't related to the labs that were tested. So I forget exactly what they told her to take. But it was basically like, oh, they were telling her to take supplements that would be kind of harmful for this other condition that she had that just like wasn't on the wasn't taken into account because the AI didn't know that. So she was just basically saying that, which I agree with health related things, there's data, like different data points that you're kind of all critically thinking and trying to figure out like what's priority. How do we manage multiple things at one time? What's history? What have you done well with? Like there's so many different layers to it that just looking at data, and we've talked about this before, like just looking at a lab test doesn't really tell the whole story. You need to kind of understand how the symptoms are presenting, what the history is, what's worked, what hasn't. And I think that's kind of where you can get into trouble sometimes with AI. Try doing that sort of interpretation is like, okay, it's just looking at like basically strictly, what the research says about Pseudomonas or what the research says about
kind of
this
like
low
one-dimensional.
marker. Right.
Yeah, that's hard. And the counter argument, of course, is going to be, well, you just need to input more information into it, right? So if this woman had Hashimoto's or eczema or whatever, she just needed to disclose that to the chat bot or the GPT, and then it could have made adjustments, I suppose. But yeah, the thing is too, is like, you don't know where the thing is pulling the information from. And also, here's something too, is like, it could be a glorified like Google shortcut at the end of the day. So here's what I mean. I mean, if you go on Google right now and you type in how to treat SIBO, you're going to get 99% the same recycled Alison Seebecker garbage of, oh, you have to nuke it with shit tons of oregano, take lots of berberine, and take, what's the other one? Neem. Take oregano, berberine, and neem. And if you have methane, then you do this other thing in addition. And you have to starve it with a SIBO diet for X amount of time. And then you have to do X, you're going to get the same kind of garbage protocol that you would find on Google. It's just that you're getting it a little bit streamlined and condensed, and you're getting it with less time and less effort on your part because you're asking ChatGPT to do all that research for you.
Right.
But if you read all of the top 10 or 20 hits on that Google search, you would probably come to the same conclusion of what ChatGPT is going to tell you or an AI is going to tell you. But the problem is, what is commonly done or what is commonly said to be the best thing isn't always the best thing.
Right.
We have seen...
what's the popular thing doesn't make it the best thing.
Again, popular doesn't mean best and accurate and true. And so we have seen bajillions of patients and students, and they've tried the normal run-of-the-mill SIBO thing. They've done the Seebecker protocols. They've done the Mark Pimentel protocols. They've done the rifaximin. They've sworn away probiotics. And they come to us because they're still not better yet. And a lot of times they are worse off than when they started. So, as somebody who finds that it is very, very advantageous to go against the grain sometimes and like really use your own critical thinking skills and your clinical observation skills to come to a different conclusion than what the mass sheeple do, I would caution you against AI because AI is going to give you whatever the sheeple say is best or popular.
Yeah, it's almost like a regurgitation of just like what's like commonplace.
Yeah. Like that has a time and a place.
Yeah. Well, and I think of this too. So more recently, I don't know if we've talked about it in this podcast much, but I had an adult ear infection. I know we've talked about it in the behind the scenes, but I had this stupid adult ear infection. I guess that happens. Who knew? But when I had the adult ear infection, I was using AI. But to me, like, I guess the difference, and I'm still kind of critically thinking a bit with it, but like ear infections have been around for so long to a degree. So I'm like, what would a doctor typically tell me? It was interesting looking it up. And I will say, basically what AI said was what they did, like there's limited options for something like an ear infection. Now, again, I didn't get any of the sort of like more holistic type options. Like there were still options that probably were neglected off of that, or maybe.
But again, if you prompted it, if you said, how do you treat an ear infection in an adult? By the way, I don't want to take antibiotics and I would prefer to do things holistically, then you maybe could have gotten that info.
True. I think the funniest thing to me was the thing that helped the most was like a lymphatic massage that I would have never thought of. But I found it like maybe on a Reddit thread where it was like, oh, what helped your like drain fluid from the ear?
That doesn't surprise me. That feels like that would work.
Right. It was like, oh.
But yeah, and here's another thing that we rail against a lot of the time, right? Reddit. Again, like there's a time and a place for a lot of this. Similarly, I don't I think I brought it up as my PSA in one of the recent episodes, but I had that weird eye craziness recently.
Yeah.
And we tell you all the damn time, stop Googling your symptoms, stop Googling your diagnoses. I Googled what was going on because I had like a loose understanding of what was going on and what maybe could be a possibility, but I needed to Google enough to verify, okay, is this something that I should maybe take seriously or no? But then once I got a sense of that, of like, should I take action or is this nothing? Then I started like going to the doctors and getting a real medical opinion from a human being. And I got off of the Google to a large degree. Now, when they started talking about maybe needing to do a procedure, then I was looking up those particular procedures, but I was doing that in PubMed, not on Google and not with AI, because I wanted to see the research studies of like, oh, when we do this procedure on 100 patients with retinal tears, like how many of them do well, how many don't. But, I Googled enough to get a sense of the direction I was going for, and I knew enough to go take it seriously and go to the ER. But, it's tricky when you're asking, hey, AI, I need you to diagnose me. And now I need you to give me a treatment plan and tell me like what supplements and what pills to take, or heaven forbid, restrict their diet or do something more extreme. Like I could see AI recommending the elemental diet willy-nilly because again, like that's in the popular SIBO universe.
I was just like, even if you look up, so does elemental diet work for SIBO? We can see if it says yes.
It's going to give elemental 85%.
Yeah, it just says yes. Elemental diet is an effective treatment. Studies have shown that elemental diets can achieve an 80 to 84% success rate. It does say considerations, which this is good. It says it's crucial to implement under the guidance of a healthcare professional, as it's challenging to adhere to and requires careful monitoring.
Okay, that's something. I'll take it.
But yeah, I mean, I think, what's interesting about the work that we do is we're going against the grain to a degree. Like then especially from a philosophical standpoint, we would argue, that a lot of people getting diagnosed with SIBO, probably SIBO is not the primary issue that's causing their problems. And like, again, even if you look up the lactulose breast test, we can kind of look up that too. It's not going to really probably say that there's a large false positive rate, unless you asked it, Well, it's kind of like even just knowing the questions to ask AI would be.
That's actually, I hear the neighborhood garbage truck approaching, so I'm going to have you talk about this, and I'm going to put you on the spot for a second. But that was something that I was going to say is I've heard somewhere the quality of your life is dictated by the quality of questions you ask. And I think that this is a good example of it. Do you want to speak to a minute for that to put you on the spot? And also like maybe like smarter ways to use AI and like how to ask questions of it? I don't know if you could speak to that or if we need to wait for the garbage truck to go by me.
Yeah, well, I think unfortunately, probably what a lot of people do is they're maybe putting a lot of the muscle into AI, being like, oh, I'm just going to ask you a few questions and it's just going to like be easy peasy, spit out the thing that I need. And I think some people, again, are going to go more in the weeds than not. But, I think even just critically thinking from a SIBO standpoint, because everyone that we've worked with has usually tried the conventional approaches and they haven't worked. So probably everything that they put into AI of like, oh, how do I treat SIBO? Or like, how do I treat a difficult case of SIBO or something would be maybe a question that they would ask. And maybe it's elemental then. Maybe it's kind of some of these other things that I haven't necessarily seen be overwhelmingly helpful versus thinking of it in a totally different way of like, oh, is SIBO even my problem? So again, I think you're right. Just looking at it through the lens of your eye situation It's like maybe getting a little bit of data and then bouncing it off of some other people. Or again, I think being able to construct enough questions around a topic to where it could be beneficial. But I think, again, so many people are looking at their IBS through the lens of SIBO that's just going to bring kind of, like you said earlier, basic B type responses probably from an AI tool versus, looking deeper. One thing I do like, though, sometimes with AI is how much it links to things, because you could even go a little bit deeper with some of the links and see like, oh, what's the quality of this research? Because I think that that's something to ask. And maybe you could ask AI that too, of like, go ahead.
I was just going to say briefly, I have a neighbor who's in research, and she's mentioned that sometimes the links that the AI gives you are the incorrect links, or they link to completely unrelated articles, though.
Oh
So
my gosh. Yeah.
be careful, because you would maybe want to verify those links and verify that they make the claims that the AI says that they claim.
Well, and it brings up even our conversation with Bailey Hanna, who, if you haven't listened to that episode, it's great. She talks a lot about probiotics. She's researching probiotics. Like, she has very high standards of the evidence for each probiotic, and she kind of ranks them like, okay, this has the strongest evidence and is probably the best research design and that sort of stuff. And you might not need to go to that level of detail, but maybe like just acknowledging like, oh, there was a huge issue in this study, or there's kind of a bigger issue in the study. I think about that a lot with things like FODMAP research. Like, if you look up FODMAP research, like, to me, something that has to be taken into account is that like you can't blind a FODMAP study. Like, people know that they're eliminating FODMAPs, and they know that there's probably a potential that it helps with GI symptoms. So like, the belief that, oh, I'm on low FODMAP and this should likely help my symptoms probably does to some extent drive some of the symptom reduction. But like, I don't think AI is going to explain that nuance per se. It's just probably going to say this diet's super effective for IBS and SIBO and kind of lowers bloating and all this stuff, which it does do. But again, I think that there should be some nuance around this discussion. And I think that that's probably like some of with the IBS stuff and the interventions at play, and even just the testing, like, I think it's much newer. Like, we're just learning about the microbiome. So like, even AI is going to be limited by what we know and kind of the limitations of the things that we do know and don't know. I think sometimes with Googling and searching and doing AI tools, it feels like things are more certain than they actually are. And that's kind of a crux of the matter too. It's like, ooh, can we even say definitively that SIBO, like the functional medicine world says, that SIBO is 80% or 80% of IBS cases are SIBO? It's like, whoa, that's like at a crazy assumption. So I think there's a lot of situations like that where AI tools and Google and maybe Reddit and whatever you're kind of following might make it seem like something is very certain when it actually isn't that certain. Or it might work for a large percentage of people or some people, but not others. And there has to be some individual nuance in how you're kind of looking at some of these tools, I should say.
Yeah. Well, and keep in mind that certainty sells. Mm-hmm. Like if you had two people on stage and one of them was talking with 100% confidence, 100% clarity, and very matter of fact, very articulate, they could say almost anything and the majority of people will believe them. Like, I think there's been studies on this of like,
wow,
how confident charismatic speakers or confident charismatic people just get people to buy into whatever they're saying, even if it's complete gibberish, versus if somebody is, frankly, if somebody is up on stage and talking like we do and is like, oh, It's not pure good or pure bad. There's some gray zone in between. And let's talk about the nuance. And let's talk about the scenarios where this would make sense and maybe not make sense. And, oh, there's a whole detailed story here. Like that tends to evoke less confidence, which is so dumb because I feel like for me, it's the opposite. I feel like I appreciate it so much when people are willing to kind of chew on something, or when they're willing to admit like, hey, there are strengths and weaknesses and we need to acknowledge both. Like, I think that instills confidence for me personally, but that is not the experience for the majority, apparently. Usually people gravitate to like really charismatic, strong, confident people. And I think similarly, you know, if you clicked on 2 blog websites, like let's just take my example from earlier, a blog site explaining how to identify and differentiate walnut trees versus pecan trees, right? If one of the articles was like, bam, this is it, man. You look for these 2 characteristics. You got a slam dunk. You identified the tree. End of story. This is it. 100% confidence. That would probably get a lot of hits and clicks on Google, and it would be ranked very highly. But what if somebody did like a damn dissertation, TED Talk length essay about, you know, I frolicked in the forest and I spoke with the, I'm picturing this as like a hippy dippy person, right? Who's like wearing hemp necklaces and stuff. And they're like, I spoke with the trees and they told me about this, Y, and Z. And oh, by the way, here's the difference in the leaf structure. And then I communed with the walnuts and ate nothing but walnuts for a week. And then, oh, and by the way, here's what the bark looks like. And it's like long and rambly and way too much information. And maybe some of it is like weird or obscure. And I mean, I know that I'm building 2 completely different scenarios here, but my point is the one that's less confident and clear and like definitive probably wouldn't get as much hits on Google, and it wouldn't like evoke that reaction in people.
Well, it even reminds me of the algorithm on Instagram now. I was like maybe seeing like something, because we get stuff tailored to businesses, and it's like, oh, the first 6 seconds are the most important. And that kind of goes to like the attention span too.
I've even heard 3.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, so it's, you know, the people that have the longer reels that might have some good information are going to be kind of shit out of luck. But I think what you're saying too reminds me of this idea that I think most people have in this space, unfortunately, is that, oh, gut repair is really linear. And I think sometimes with some of these AI tools, it tries to create like a very linear, succinct, you know, clear path, when a lot of people, I mean, as we know, have kind of messy paths, and they have to like experiment with this one thing, see if it helps. Or again, it's, you know, something like stress for someone, you know, some meditation might work for one person, but not the other. So, you know, I think it's this idea of, you know, that you can kind of if you have the idea that you can plug something into an AI tool and get a very linear, succinct, like plan that you can 100% trust, that's probably not the best way to use the tool. It kind of reminds me too, when you were talking about, you know, how
communing with the pecan trees in the forest and listening to the bark and all its secrets.
Not that part, but it reminds me of like how you were saying people that speak very confidently tend to kind of like get more of a draw, and maybe would get more of a draw in like an algorithm or something like that. It reminds me of people that ask, you know, what's your success rate on a discovery call? I know we've discussed this before. Like, what's your success rate? Like, is it 80%, 90%, blah, blah. And they want me to put like I think they want me to say that I help everybody, but it's like,
totally. That would be like, best case. But even, you know, if you could say like 82%, that would scratch the anxious part of their brain in such a good way. Oh,
right. But then I feel like there is just this aspect of wanting like certainty, like what you're saying. And I'm like, if someone told you that they're like 100% successful, or that they like help everybody, that should be a red flag. But maybe for an anxious brain, it wouldn't.
Well,
but yeah.
I'll flip this too. I think on the one hand, I think there are a lot of people who would be comforted by hearing a number. And we've had this and we've talked about this so many times, but like, I don't know that number for my practice for several reasons. One is that I ain't got the time to track those numbers and get a definitive, 83.4% or whatever it might be number. But part of it too is that there's this really messy thing of like, why was I maybe not able to help somebody? Like, if I gave somebody all the right information, all the right tools, all the right recommendations, and they did not act on it, should that count negatively toward my success rate number? Like, I feel like it shouldn't. That wasn't my fault. But like, I've had vegans who, like recently we had a vegan go through FODMAP Freedom and she claimed, oh, it didn't work for me and I want a refund. Well, we asked her in the screening discovery call, we asked like, hey, you're a vegan. Are you willing to change your diet? Because like, we can't guarantee results if you remain a vegan. And she told us, yes, I am. And then, however many months later, we found out she had not changed her diet whatsoever.
Right.
And it's like, okay, is that really on me? Is it really that my program didn't work for you or that you refused to implement the coaching? And, there's many other examples of that, but, and you don't really know the answer. Would I have been able to help them if they had followed the advice? Like, we don't have the answer for that because we don't have like, parallel universes to check in on. But I'd like to think a non-zero number of those people would have been able to be helped by me if they had just listened to the damn advice. And anyway, so it's like, it's the human brain really craves certainty, or at least the illusion of certainty. And it doesn't always work like that. And but you could ask AI, like if you ask it a question, it'll come up with something.
Right.
If you ask it like, for people with SIBO who take rifaximin, what percentage of them get benefit from that rifaximin? It'll spit out a number, but that doesn't really tell you like the rest of the story.
Right.
If you take rifaximin, but your sleep is crap, your relationships suck, you never get out of the house, you never move your body, you're eating 3 foods and your microbiome diversity is tanked and your nutrition is tanked, and your vagal tone is shot and your blood sugar is out of whack, and then you just take rifaximin, like, do you take a black and white number like that and expect that, there's a 54% likelihood that I'm going to do good on this rifaximin? Or do you take it with a huge grain of salt? But again, it's like this critical thinking kind of skill that AI can't really help you with.
Yeah, and I do think too, like what you were saying, AI is not going to really be able to compile a strategy that's really multifactorial, which I don't necessarily think it needs to, but that's what's helpful about like a coach. If you can work with a coach or something that is multifactorial, or just, again, listening to this podcast and maybe realizing like, oh, there's other factors than just me treating the SIBO. Like I have to work on the fundamentals that make a strong gut-brain axis. And it's really like there really aren't studies that are going to combine because they always isolate a variable, which is very helpful in science. But
that's good in science.
Right.
But clinically, that's not how it works.
Yeah. But I think there is something about having watched so many people go through programs or working with them one-on-one and seeing like, oh, this combination of factors works. But there's just really no way to study this like on a scientific level. Yeah. But we understand the mechanisms of what's happening and why it's helping. And again, there's it's just messy. I think that's one of the fundamental things is like, I think AI and data in general kind of make it seem like maybe it's not going to be messy, or if I get enough information and like I plug everything into AI, I can, like you said, be certain that the treatment plan that I've molded with the AI is going to be the most likely to help me. And I just don't think that things are that clean in this space. I think that we generally know what's going to help. I think there's always a level of experimentation, even after you've kind of looked at research and data, you could see something that works for 80% of people, but maybe you're in the 20% and you need to work on some other things, and we need to figure out like
bigger fish to fry.
Right. What's going to be the biggest thing that helps you, and being able to kind of experiment and be curious about the process and not necessarily feel like you need to get, every piece of data. And even if you do get every piece of data, it might not guarantee success.
Well, and if I may, sorry, I don't know if I cut you off or not. Speaking to the linear, complete, like not messy, like really clean kind of idea, and how people kind of crave that, I will confess. So again, like we both practice and we're both business owners. I started seeing pretty early in my clinical career, I was seeing that a lot of my patients, they seem to have a strong desire for a really clear roadmap. And, I think it would have been really great to be able to tell people, okay, it's going to take exactly 9 weeks to get you where you want to go. And we're going to work on leaky gut for 3 weeks. Then we're going to work on motility for 2 weeks. Then we're going to kill the SIBO for 3 weeks. Then we're going to retest. Then we're going to do another leaky gut round for 2 weeks. And so I actually tried to do that for a very short period of time in my clinical practice. And I made like Excel spreadsheets that I could print, like, so it had kind of a timeline of sorts. And this was like maybe a month I tried to do this with new patients, and then I couldn't do it anymore.
Right.
But I tried, like I had kind of a timeline drawn out on a piece of paper that I printed from an Excel spreadsheet that I made. And that I would go in, and I forget if I typed it or not, but I would handwrite like, okay, week 1, week 2, week 3, we're killing the SIBO. Week 4, 5, 6, we're doing more candida work. Then, and I was trying to really draw it out and map it out visually and really chunk it up very clearly of like, this step will take this many weeks. Then this step will take this many weeks. And I stopped doing it, A, because it was freaking exhausting. But B, I started realizing really quickly, that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. And I knew that going in, but it was like, I think there was some element of like me, the business owner, trying to keep the customer happy and trying to increase compliance or increase ease in the relationship with the patient. Like I was just trying to appease them and give them what they want. But that's not how this works. And again, like you could get a protocol like that from AI, and it could tell you leaky gut will take this long, then we'll do this step, then we'll do this step. But it doesn't fucking know because it doesn't know you, it doesn't know your life, and it can't tell the future. I can't tell the future. I might know you, and I might know your life, and I might know your medical history, but I don't know how long something will take until we get there.
Yeah.
Right? Like we might get 3 weeks into a dysbiosis protocol, and theoretically we should be wrapping that up and moving on to the next thing. But if you have not eaten any vegetables, right? Like if you're eating crap food, and I've been telling you for 3 weeks, hey, we need to eat some vegetables. Hey, we need to eat some fiber. But if you spent 3 weeks just taking L-glutamine and eating Pop-Tarts, and we're nearing the end of what theoretically could be like a leaky gut dysbiosis protocol, guess what? We need to keep on that part of the protocol until we get it right, because you're not ready to move on. But again, like ChatGPT can't tell the future, and it can't tell how compliant you're going to be at each step of the game. So you just have to kind of play it by ear, and that's not something that AI can do for you, especially if it's just like a one-off brain dump kind of interaction.
Well, and I think too, similarly, like what you're saying, AI doesn't know even where you are at now. Because I think that that's something I talk about a lot with patients. If you tried something and you were basically malnourished or had lost 30 pounds, like let's say that happens all the time, where someone was 160 pounds and they went on a restrictive diet and now they're 130 and they've kind of been able to stay there, but like their body's still freaking out a little bit because they're 30 pounds lighter than the weight that they typically thrive at. So every intervention that you do during that time should be through the lens of like basically being malnourished to a degree, right? And so if you just all of a sudden are like, oh, I have SIBO and I'm going to do all the SIBO stuff, but then you're malnourished, it's like, can we really trust that the interventions you're doing for the SIBO are going to work at all? In the context of you being basically depleted and malnourished, versus, again, maybe you've added 15 pounds on, maybe you're not totally to your ideal weight, but your metabolism's kind of trying to shift back into high gear again, doesn't feel so depleted. Maybe maybe a lot of your symptoms go away, so maybe it isn't as much SIBO as you thought. Maybe things get a little bit better. Maybe you still have some stuff going on, and maybe something like rifaximin still makes sense and you try it and it works better. But you might get totally different results depending on where you're at and how you're prioritizing things. And that's just something AI will never really totally wrap its head around, is like, where are you at now in your journey, and how can we kind of prioritize different things based on what's the most important thing for you to do now compared to 3 months from now. And I think that's what's important. That's probably the most important thing as a coach to a degree, is being able to say, like, I know you're super worried about like your SIBO breath test right now, but like you've lost 30 pounds and your body is feeling unsafe right now. So it makes sense that like your digestive capacity is lower, your motility is lower, that your microbiome's probably not doing as well. We need to focus on that first and not worry about the SIBO. So I think, again, like that's just the level of nuance, individualized care, understanding where you're at, that just AI will never be able to really catch up with. But they're, again, like as a starting point, or as you're initially researching something, maybe asking certain questions makes sense. Like I think it can be a tool that could be helpful.
Yeah. Well, I think too, in my opinion, I think that something like this, kind of like a Google search, is better if you can ask really pointed, specific questions.
That's
so
a great, I think that's a great tip.
You know, if you go in, let me think. If you did something broad, like, how do I make my gut healthy? Or how do I treat dysbiosis? You're going to get pretty broad generic answers probably, and they may or may not be super applicable to you. But, you know, if you can tell it, like, here's a use actually. I was playing with this. You go in and you say, please tell me the side effects for this medication and include the incidence, like the percent of people on this drug who would experience that symptom. And it can, I played with this because this is something I had people do in the beginning of FODMAP Freedom, is understand their medications, but it can spit out like, oh, for Adderall, 20% decrease in appetite, 19%, this and that. And it could pull like lists and numbers for you pretty easily. Again, you might want to verify that they're accurate sometimes, but something like that where it's like, oh, give me a list of 10 different low FODMAP fruits that are in season in the summertime.
Right.
Like it could probably give you a pretty good list or something like that. But if you're asking to assess and diagnose you, a complex human being with a complex health history, and it's simply not privy to everything that's been going on in your life and your health, you're going to get like a pretty basic bitch, one-dimensional answer probably.
Yeah.
And again, and if you give it one piece of information or a handful of pieces of information, like, I have SIBO, what now? It's going to give you recycled Alison Seebecker shit because that's what is all over the internet. That's what it's going to collect from. But, if you can give it more information and tell it more of a story, I think that can help. But I don't think we're at a point yet where AI is going to replace real human healthcare and real human interaction. And that's maybe where I want to wrap up our episode actually is, let's say in some future universe that's not that far away, let's say that AI gets that good, that like intelligence-wise, it actually is just as good as seeing a MD or a doctor or a nutritionist. And let's say they developed specific AI tools to do healthcare screenings, and they could do intakes and ask all the right questions and gather the appropriate information so that they're not doing anything dangerous or contraindicated for you, and they're really pulling in everything from your medical history and your testing, and you could get answers like that. Let's say that future exists. Is there still a time and a place to go see a real human being? I'm going to answer, I think so. And I hope that real in-person healthcare does not go away, in part because I think the human experience is really valuable still. Even if you theoretically get the same exact answer from the human being versus the AI, and even if the outcome in that sense is the same, I feel like the more we isolate ourselves, the more we do everything behind a screen. And I realize the irony of this because Amy's in Cincinnati and I'm in Raleigh. And so I realize the irony of saying this on the screen right now. But I think the more we do everything on a screen and the less we do things in person and connect with and like breathe the same air as another human being and like touch a human being, I think that's to our detriment. So I really, really hope that AI doesn't fully take over the healthcare space, because I think that there is a benefit from that human connection that comes from real human interactions.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And I think that there can just be like a sixth sense about certain things, like, you know, observing someone and how they're interacting with me. I can say like, ooh, they might not realize it, but they seem stressed, or like there can be very subtle things about the human interaction that, you know, maybe AI can pick up eventually, but I
doubt it though. How would they?
Yeah. So it is interesting. I know we've talked about that where someone's like, I'm not stressed. And you're like, whoa, are we
and
sure?
They could type the words, I'm not stressed. And, you know, tone and body language wouldn't come through. We've had several students and clients over the years where my nutritionist and I have talked privately, and we're like, I feel like something's going on at home.
Yeah.
And like, we can't prove anything. We don't even know what the thing would be, but like, there's something about our interactions with this student or this client that just isn't sitting right. And, you know, maybe home life is way more stressful than they're letting on, or maybe like, you know, a spouse is abusive, or a spouse is a total asshole, or like, you don't know. And yeah, you could pick up on that a little bit energetically and from like body language and stuff as a human being. But if you're just typing like, don't worry, ChatGPT, I'm A-okay, I'm not stressed, just give me what herbs to take to obliterate my SIBO. Like, AI is not going to be able to have that heart to heart with you. So yeah, it's challenging. I think, yeah, it's not human yet, at least. So I think there's still need for human interaction. I just had a student, a FIDMAT Freedom student, the other day. I was doing a call with the alumni and doing a Q&A with them, and this came up. He was talking about how, this is a fun fact for you. So Tony Robbins, you know who he is? Like super famous? Yeah. So the student was sharing, apparently Tony Robbins is such a big deal that if you, like, the minimum fee to like interact with him in person or have him come to your event is $1 million.
What?
I know. Now, he does a lot of charity work. I'm not going to knock his fees, but it costs a lot of money. So he, in the last few years, has developed Tony AI. And apparently, I didn't look into this. This is from a student. Apparently, it's designed so that it feels just like you're talking to the real Tony Robbins, and you could chat with him and he'll talk to you about God knows what mindset and stuff. And that's all neat and everything. And this particular student is really into like manifestation and Tony Robbins kind of stuff. So he shares this sort of stuff with me sometimes. But that was all well and good. But then he disclosed to me that he is talking to this fake Tony Robbins chatbot for 3 or 4 hours every day.
Whoa.
I know. And it's like, whoa, bro. Whoa. Do you think that's okay? Like, again, for all that we talk about human connection and vagal tone and the gut-brain axis, I don't care how good that information is coming from the fake Tony Robbins robot. It could be the greatest mindset shit you ever did read, but that's not right. That's not you. This is my stance. I'm taking it. That's it, Amy. We're always the people who say black and white aren't really a thing. Everything is gray. And let's talk about the mushy gushy in the middle.
Yeah.
And we're not extremists. This is my stance. All right.
Whoa.
I'm taking a stand.
Stance.
This is black and white to me. You ready? You will not have good vagal tone if that is your idea of social interaction.
Yeah.
And you spend that much time chatting with an AI chatbot every day. Not possible. Not physiologically possible, in my humble opinion.
Yeah.
You need to interact with human beings. If you interact with the Tony Robbins AI chatbot in addition to human beings, cool, but you can't let it suck you into the negaverse to that degree and think that you can still have good vagal tone and therefore good gut function.
Right.
So, soapbox moment aside.
No, I agree.
Just, 3 or 4 hours a day.
Oof.
And then he's coming to the Q&As and he's like, well, I'm not better yet. Like, okay. Well, don't know what to tell you, man.
Yeah.
Obviously, I was much nicer in the meeting. I'm not a bitch in my Q&As, I promise. But, on that note, I don't know if I told you this. We're going to wrap this up with a side note. I actually recently decided to get rid of the FODMAP Freedom Guarantee. Did I tell you that?
You did. I think you maybe pulled me that.
Yeah.
Marco pulled me that.
Yeah. And it's really hard because I know some people aren't going to be happy about that. Like people who maybe were thinking of joining because of the guarantee, for example. And it started from a good place, right? Like I've seen a lot of people who they've been beaten down into the dirt. They've tried everything. They were made big, empty promises many times, and they've been let down many times. And, naturopaths and functional people said that this was the answer. This was it. I'm going to cure you. You're going to be great. We're going to beat this. And then they didn't follow through. And so I did that in the beginning because I think I'm just naive, but also because I genuinely have a lot of sympathy for people in this position, right?
Yeah.
And I don't want FODMAP freedom to be something that somebody does and then they regret it or they feel like it was a waste of money. So I did that guarantee and I had that in place for many years because I felt strongly about that. But especially in more recent years, it started to weigh on me a lot. And I think it's actually become a really big source of my stress because I've seen people who didn't put in the work and they weren't coachable or they didn't think that they were capable of healing. And then they cop a toot and they're like, well, it didn't work for me. Right. And then I'm left as the clinician and business owner. And I'm like, well, did it not work for you or did you not work for it?
Right.
And we did everything we could.
It maybe could create where someone puts like one foot in and one foot out and they want to just use what they think's helpful instead of what the program actually is. They're picking and choosing what they think's helpful, like maybe the herbs, but they're not gonna not go on they're not gonna add some meat in, like the vegan patient. They're not gonna kind of take that extra out of the comfort zone step.
Yeah, like they don't have skin in the game, kind of. Yeah. You could say that almost.
Yeah.
And like as an example, the guy who's spending 4 hours a day talking to fake Tony Robbins, like, I hear stuff like this and I would start to get anxious myself thinking he's going to come back someday and ask for a refund.
Right.
And do I have the conversation with him of like why it didn't work for him and try to like one last Hail Mary coach this guy? Or do I just suck it up and give him his money back? But there was a lot of like icky, weird kind of stuff on my end administering this. And again, and I do think there are some people, because I ask everybody in the beginning, there's like an intake form. One of the things I ask is, do you think you can get better? Or do you think you have the ability to heal? Answer honestly, yes or no. And we have one of those right now that's wrapping up the program right now. She straight up said, nope, I don't think I can get better. And she's been a royal pain in the ass to coach and we're not getting through to her. And I don't think she's going to get better, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
But it's not from a lack of coaching or effort on our part. It's just, it's like whether you think you can or you think you can't, either way, you are correct.
Yeah.
And I've tried having heart-to-hearts with her and coach her to the best of my ability, and it just hasn't worked. But at the end of the day, I started realizing I think I need to just focus on working with people who really believe that they're capable of healing.
Right.
And again, like they really are dedicated to doing what we ask of them and really following through with the coaching. So yeah, that's one of many changes that I made recently. We also bumped up the support from 12 weeks to 12 months. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, I'm kind of in the process of making those announcements and opening up the doors again. So it's wild times, but it's it's tough. I don't even remember how we got on this tangent. So we're going to wrap up.
Yeah.
Final thing that I will share with you and the group. This is going to be one of those episodes where we ask you to comment in the comments down below in the YouTube video. I actually have a friend whose entire world is AI. Like, she works in AI. She has a course that she teaches other tech industry professionals how to do AI and how to use it and how to build it so that they can like get AI-based jobs in the tech industry. I could pretty much guarantee that she would be willing to come on the podcast and talk to us a little bit more about AI if we had interest in such an episode.
Yeah.
I feel like from like a pure kind of healthcare layperson point of view, like not knowing anything about AI myself, I feel like we covered it pretty well. But if anybody's interested in sort of like the point of view from somebody whose entire world is AI and really knows it inside and out, that might be an interesting AI part 2 conversation to have. And we can kind of hash out, again, pros and cons and like, how do you use this in an intelligent, safe way? And how do you, and what might be less advisable or even outright dangerous if you use AI. So let me know in the comments on this YouTube video down below if you want me to con my friend into coming on here. That would probably be the most off-topic guest we've ever had, but I think it could be a fun one. And she's a hoot. You would enjoy meeting her for that matter.
Nice.
So
cool.
Comment below if you want that episode. We'll see if we can do a follow-up. But in the meantime, we will be back here with another guest, I believe next week, if I remember correctly, or next episode. And then we're going to continue with our single nutrient series. Next up, I believe, is biotin, vitamin B7. So stay tuned. And until then, go take care of your vagal tone and get off the damn computer and go get some sunshine. Okay? Bye.